thank you so much for clicking on this review. The fact that you are willing to sacrifice a few minutes of your day really does mean the world to me, and I really do appreciate it. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, and we're going to be talking about the latest MCU release, The Eternals. And I'm going to be 100% honest with you guys. I was really underwhelmed by the first trailer for this film. Second one, I got a lot more excited. And finally, after watching the movie, I've got mixed emotions. But for the most part, I didn't just enjoy this movie, I loved it. Again, it's not a perfect film, but it's a great film. And so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to not give you any story elements at all. This film surprised me so much. The trailer doesn't show the story of this film well at all. And that was done intentionally. I was completely misled by the trailer. I was expecting an incredibly different story. And so I'm so thankful for what we got, because it's unlike anything we've seen in the MCU for a very long time. In fact, I would say this is by far the most unique film we've had, literally since phase 1. This doesn't feel like your stereotypical MCU film. While there are elements that exist within this film that have become the MCU pattern, such as humor that doesn't always land, the need for a joke character, while we do still have that in this is a much more serious film where tensions are real and the stakes are much, much higher. But that leads me into my first reason I didn't really enjoy the film, and that is actually the stakes. The personal stakes in this film are great, they're perfect, but the worldwide implications are exactly the same as the last few MCU films we've had, where if the heroes don't win, the entire world gets destroyed. And why that's frustrating to me is that we no longer have just friendly neighborhood Spider-Mans. We no longer have heroes that are willing to do good deeds for ordinary citizens. One of my favorite superhero films of all time is Superman the movie, released in 1978, because it's such a pure portrayal of Superman and heroes in general. We get to see Superman rescuing a cat from a tree. While that might sound dumb and trivial, at least you know no issue is too small for Superman. He's willing to save everyone, which isn't something I've felt or experienced in the MCU of late. Everything is always bigger, badder. The entire universe is at stake. Everyone's going to die. And yes, I understand from film to film to film, you want to raise the stakes. But we're now missing that personal tension. We're missing the personal stakes. We're missing the small, intense stories. But what I will say is that in regards to the interpersonal relationships, the Eternals handled that tension and the stakes so very well. Talking about relationships between characters, this is an ensemble cast, okay? And I was worried that we wouldn't get as much time with the different characters and some would feel underdeveloped. And while that is the case, the characters that mattered were so incredibly fleshed out, and we actually got a decent idea of the personalities of all of the different Eternals. Of course, for me, 3 stood out, and that was Thena, Icarus, and Gilgamesh. They were amazing. I would love to see solo films of all 3 of them, but in particular, Icarus was amazing. I was not expecting to fall in love or enjoy a character out of the blue as much as I did with him. The last time I felt this way about a superhero was the Utopian. And now I'm literally telling you this right now. I'm straight after this review. After I've uploaded it and everything, I'm going straight onto YouTube or onto Google, and I'm ordering as many comics that have Icarus in as possible because I want to learn more about him. I fell in love with him in this movie. But talking about how great this ensemble cast is, and they were great because you don't actually like everyone. This is an ensemble cast where everyone is ultimately a good guy, but you don't like everyone. They're so well written, it's amazing. But going from that strength or that highlight of the film to the next weakness, that is the primary antagonist. I would say there's about 3 antagonists in this film, but the one that you see in the trailer, so incredibly disappointing, such a letdown. It actually brings me back to the days of the early MCU. Remember when the biggest issue with the MCU was how forgettable and bland their villains were? And then that suddenly turned around when we started to get the likes of Thanos and the Vulture and everything like that. We were like, wow, you know, the MCU is really putting emphasis into their villains. That's definitely not the case with this film. I was incredibly disappointed. While the other 2 villains are a lot more fleshed out, the primary antagonist, the one that we see the most in the trailer, and the one that is built up to be the big bad, that one was so lackluster and disappointing. And it's upsetting because he had so much potential. The potential was amazing. When I saw this character develop and evolve, I was so excited to see what would happen. And I was like, look, this is going to be an amazing villain. And it was just, such a letdown. But then for me, the absolute highlight of this film is the theme it tackles, and that is morality. What is the right thing? Self-sacrifice. All of this is wrapped up into a nice little present with a bow. Because the way the film asks you this question, how do you know what's right and what's good? How do you know what is the best decision to make? And while the film does ultimately give you its own answer, it leaves it up to you to interpret it how you like. It's great. It's a great way to analyze morality. What's good? What's evil? I had a great time. That was my favorite aspect of the film because I was even asking myself, flip, what's good? And it's actually very similar to one of the Star Trek films. I'm not going to say too much more because I'm going to start giving away the story. But there's specific elements that are very similar to a specific Star Trek film where a very similar question is asked. And it asks the viewer that question, what are you going to do? What do you believe is right? So at the end of the day, Eternals had some major downfalls. And I think there were a lot of story elements and character beats that I really didn't agree with either. And ultimately, by the end of the film, I was feeling rather deflated. I was very disappointed with some of the things that happened. But up until that point, it was great. I was incredibly impressed with the decisions that the creative team made. So guys, I would definitely recommend this to those of you that are MCU diehard fans, but also for those of you that really just want to see a different take on the superhero genre. And I completely forgot, DC have really screwed themselves over because for an ensemble cast, honestly, especially with characters that are as similar as the DC Trinity. I mean, if you look at Icarus, he's basically Superman. If you look at Athena, she's basically Wonder Woman. The things they did in this movie were so much better than anything the Justice League have done in any live action films. DC, seriously, take notes, make a Justice League film that takes inspiration from this movie. Okay guys, but that's it. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't yet. Give this video a like, and I hope to see you again in another review.